Yeah, I was having a hard time.
The Crossroads deal and the get well.
Oh, that's nice, yeah.
I've been here for over 8
Yeah, let's put a, well, this is a pencil, but Barry must have not been able to make it today.
maybe a long one.
I got this packet off. I don't think we've had one this long.
From last month, when you weren't here, the $25 one.
Yeah, because I had it
Okay.
forwarded.
I just, okay. I wanted to make sure they had your correct address. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it then.
Well, I don't know if they had it correct, but they do,
I
they
doubt
do
they
now.
did,
Yeah.
but I'm just gonna make sure that they have it.
You got me on the first one?
Well, the first one table.
Right, the second one, yeah, okay. I
That
gotta
one.
recuse myself from that.
Let me see.
Through the
John.
plat, so yeah, keep voting.
Which one is the one?
So
I
I
gotta
vote
recuse
against
myself
it.
on one of these two.
When
Freaking,
when I announce it for, I turn it over to BJ, just say I'll recuse myself.
Hey, man. Hey, Greg. Good to see you. It's been a while. Good to see you.
You got some plans or something like that? I only sign like 40 of them whenever I. What is this one in for?
That is item 3. The big one.
It's not your idea, I mean, I can see why they would be. I mean, it's like,
And item 1 we tabled.
you did
I
the
got it.
survey. I mean, usually.
I told BJ I'm not even calling him up, so.
You know, people are arguing about.
I told him I'm not calling him up. I'm just gonna announce that they requested it.
She's probably.
all Hernando. Oh, you're searching.
We're gonna call tonight's meeting to order.
Yeah, I need to get the documentation.
Commissioner Jordan, if you'll give tonight's invocation, please.
Everyone bow their head, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us this opportunity, giving us this another day to come before you. We pray for your wisdom and guidance tonight, this evening. Please be with us as we go through and make different decisions and evaluations. Please guide us with your wisdom. In the Lord's name we pray. Amen.
Roll call.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Here.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Carter,
Here.
Commissioner Jordan,
Here.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Here.
Commissioner Skeen,
Here.
Commissioner Brumbelow.
Here.
Have the commissioners had a chance to look over last month's minutes? And if so, do I have a first to, or motion?
So moved.
Second.
Keith,
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Commissioners, for the item requesting to amend the preliminary plat approval on Crossroads, the applicant has asked to table that until the May 10th, 2022 meeting. So do I have a motion to table that item?
A motion to table.
That 1581.
It is, correct.
Second.
The one that.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Motion to table passes to the May 10th at 6 p.m. All right, Mr. Page, item number 2 is
Because that one. I gotta recuse
final
myself
plat
for.
approval for Clark Estates, 2 lots, 4.98 total acres.
Who's the one on that?
I'll have to recuse myself on this one. Stuck on the other room.
Yeah.
All right, as the chairman mentioned, this is a two-lot subdivision, a final plat. Lot 1 will consist of 3.36 acres, and Lot 2 will consist of 1.62 acres. Lot 1 will contain an existing single-family residential structure and a barn, while Lot 2 will be a vacant lot. Each lot will have direct access to West Oak Grove Road and access to centralized water and sanitary sewer services. Lots currently zoned in the A agricultural district, which has a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres, so both lots would meet or exceed that minimum requirement, and should meet all of the necessary setbacks. The proposed subdivision is outside of any flood hazard zone. If approved, the final plat will proceed to the April 19th, 2022 Board of Alderpersons meeting for final plat approval. Under the proposed motion to grant final plat approval, the plat needs to be revised in the title block. They need to add the zoning district. Need to correct within the title block Range 9 West to instead read Range 8 West. We need to revise the mortgagee certificates to state our current wording concerning the dedication of right-of-way of roads and utility easements. And then we need to revise the notes on the plat to reflect that there are 5-foot wide utility easements on the side property lines. From that point on, the conditions are standard subdivision conditions. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address in its entirety, please?
Hi, I'm Judy Clark, and my address is 1114 West Oak Grove Road, Hernando, Mississippi, 38632.
Joseph Brower, 83 Crockett Loop East, Hernando, Skeen Engineering.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Clark or Mr. Brower? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here for or against this application? And if so, please come forward, state your name and address. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to grant final plat approval for Clark Estates, 2 lots, 4.89 acres located in the southwest corner, Section 14, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon a finding that the submitted final plat generally conforms to the requirements of city codes and ordinances subject to the following conditions 1 through 10.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Ashworth.
Aye.
The motion to approve passes. Mr. Ashworth, will you grab Commissioner Skeen? Mr. Terry. All right, Mr. Page, item number 3, request to rezone a 155.975 acre tract of land located on northwest corner of Getwell Road and the I-269 interchange in Section 23, Township 2 South, Range 7 West, from the A Agricultural District to the M1 Light Industrial District. Mr. Barry Bridgeford Jr.
Okay.
represent.
All right. Basically, this piece of property, as the chairman noted, lies right on the northwest corner of I-269 and Getwell Road. It's 155 acres, and the intention is to rezone it to the M1 Light Industrial District. The M1 district is intended to provide a variety of light manufacturing uses that include assembling, processing, storage, and distribution activities. Properties are to be used for light industrial and warehousing purposes that emit no more than the minimum amount of noise, odor, and dust associated with light industries. Permitted uses run the gamut from convenience stores to restaurants to manufacturing plants. The future land use map of the city's general development plan currently designates the subject property as mixed use and activity master plan commercial. The property is split between these two designations, with the activity master plan commercial land use classification situated at the intersecting corner of I-269 and Getwell Road North. However, based on the future land use map, it appears that the majority of the lot falls within the mixed-use designation. The purpose of the mixed-use designation is to provide for a broad spectrum of land uses that are complementary to each other and are located near major thoroughfares. Mixed-use designations, may also be appropriate for sectors of the city experiencing transition and/or revitalization. Small-scale retail, office, and residential uses tend to mix well in these instances. The mixed-use designation includes a subset of development types, of which general mixed use is the subset aligned with the subject property requested for rezoning. Recommended zoning districts for the general mixed-use designation are planned unit development, C4 planned commercial, and PB planned business, and the TND traditional neighborhood development. Properties with an activity master plan commercial classification are situated in areas providing optimal access to major arterial roadways and near existing employment centers. These include nodes at interchanges along Interstate 69, 269, and Highway 304. Development is intended to be efficient and attractive, ideal for uses like big box retail, restaurants, office parks, and hotels. The zoning district recommended for master plan commercial designation is the C4 planned commercial district. Therefore, based on the future land use map and general development plan, the applicant's request to rezone the property to M1 Light Industrial District does not conform to the goals and future land use plans for the area. Now, under discussion, you have the 3 criteria that you are required to consider in making a decision on a rezoning. You have the applicant's response to each of those 3 criteria, as well as staff comments. So, since you've had those in your possession, I am not going to go over those in any great detail. The staff would comment that the request, of course, is to rezone to light industrial. Any future development of the property shall require approval of a certificate development and construction plans prior to the issuance of a building permit. Future division of the property shall occur through the subdivision process as defined in the City of Hernando subdivision regulations. And following Planning Commission review and recommendation to the board, the rezoning request may proceed to the April 19th. That's not right, I'm sorry. It would proceed to the second meeting in May for the Board of Alderpersons meeting. I have given you a motion to approve with appropriate findings, a motion to deny with appropriate findings, and of course, you always have the option of tabling the item if you feel like that you need additional time to consider the request, or if you feel that there is additional information that you require that you need in order to make a decision. So with that, that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address in its entirety?
Good evening. Barry Bridgeforth Jr., 5293 Getwell Road, South Haven, Mississippi, 38672. I'm representing Andy Anderson and Huntington Industrial Partners.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Bridgeforth?
If approved, what's the industrial plan that you have going in that property?
It would be warehouses. I've got David McDaniel with Huntington Industrial Partners that can provide more information on that if y'all would like for me to bring him forward. He would probably be more able to respond.
Hi, my name is David McDaniel with Huntington Industrial Partners, and we have a really short presentation. We promise it will be very short to tell you more about Commissioner Thorne, your question, and maybe a little bit more information. What I'd like to talk a little bit about is the future land use plan for the city of Hernando. We do believe that that northeast corner of 269 and 55 is probably well suited for mixed use. What we would say humbly is that 900 acres of mixed use is too much. And the reason we say that is real-world DeSoto County examples. If you think about mixed-use developments already kind of either underway or built in DeSoto County, there is the Snowden District in South Haven. That's about 120 acres. And then there's a new one being developed in Olive Branch called the Cascades. And that one is about 84 acres. Both of them fairly ambitious mixed-use developments, averaging about 100 acres. But your future land use plan has 900 acres, so you could do 9 of them. And we would submit that the population in this area won't support that for a good long while. So we're not requesting all 900 acres be changed, but we're requesting the most remote acreage, 155 acres, that is furthest away, 2 exits away, furthest away from I-55, that you consider changing that to light industrial. And I'm not naive, because I know what goes in your head when you hear light industrial. You're thinking, oh, warehouses, you know, those are ugly. They have trucks. Why would we want to do that? And what I want to tell you guys today is that these buildings are going to be a very professionally landscaped, really nicely officed business park. And I will show some pictures in a minute. Not only that, it's going to be economically beneficial for the city, both in terms of jobs. There'll be 625 jobs created, we estimate, and in terms of tax revenues. Finally, there'll be very, very minimal truck traffic impact. We have kind of a presentation that we've handed out, and we'll kind of go to the first slide of that. And assuming you can get that up. Next slide. So just real quickly, our company does only industrial development. Our company in its current sort of iteration was founded in 2010, but the 3 partners, we've worked together since the 80s, since 1980. So we have been doing industrial a long, long time. In our company now, we've acquired and developed about 15.4 million, but our cumulative experience is about 700 million acquisitions of square feet. So we do this a lot, and we don't know a lot else regarding other types of development, but we do know a lot about industrial development. And humbly, I think we build a pretty good product. We have 3 offices. I head up the Southeast office out of Atlanta, but when you're in the logistics business, in the Southeast, you pay very close attention to this area. It's very important for logistics. Go ahead, Jimmy. So we have developed already in DeSoto County, and so you can kind of drive by if you'd like to put eyes on what we've developed. And it's I-22 Logistics Park. It's at Craft Road and I-22. It's exit number 1, just across the line into Mississippi on that northwest corner. We have developed 1.5 million feet, so it's almost the size of what we're talking about doing here. There are 3 buildings. They're very attractive. Jimmy, go to the next. This is typically what we do in terms of landscaping, office, and so forth. So you can see that we really try to develop an attractive-looking business park. So rather than thinking warehouse, think business park. The next slide shows the location again. That entire sort of corner, northeast corner, is all in the future land use plan set up, 900 acres set up for mixed use. We're talking about a small 155-acre piece of that switching to light industrial. And specifically, the park will lay out something like this. Go ahead. So you can see we run off of Getwell Road. Getwell Road is the eastern boundary. And we'll have a serpentine road that goes through the park, heavily landscaped, probably about 5 buildings, totaling about 2 to 2.2 million square feet. But that'll be kind of how it lays out. Natural buffers to the north are Hurricane Creek and all the trees that are associated with that stream. And then the interstate, of course, to the south, Getwell Road to the west, and then Tullahoma. Tullahoma to the west, and Getwell to the east. So that's kind of what the park would look like. So hopefully I've maybe dispelled a few notions regarding these are warehouses. They're not going to be attractive, and I would submit to you they're going to be very attractive. The next thing that I want to bring up just real quickly is economic benefits. So the thing about warehouses, because you guys have all heard about the supply chain shortages, that's both in product and also in warehouses in the U.S. Memphis area SMSA as well as the U.S. in general is really undersupplied with warehouses. So when you build them, they get leased very quickly. That doesn't always happen, but we're just in a point in the cycle where that happens. So these buildings will be up and paying taxes within 2 years. So it immediately forms tax base for the city, probably about $175 million of tax base for the city, about 625 jobs. And in order to create the same tax base, go ahead to the next slide. In order to create the same tax base, you would have to build 538 $325,000 houses. That's the revenue side. On the cost side, they won't cost the city hardly anything. Warehouses rarely use the police, fire, water, sewer. They're very efficient from a cost side. In other words, if you had a neighborhood of 500 homes, you're going to have a lot of city services, schools, et cetera, that are required by virtue of that tax base. This will create revenue and very little in the way of expenses for the city. So it's very, very tax efficient. And then the last thing I'll tell you is traffic. In thinking about light industrial in a city, because of the economic benefits, you'd like to have it somewhere. You'd like to have it away from residential, and you'd like to have it in a place where trucks aren't driving through the street, blocking intersections, creating problems for the city or tearing up streets. In this case, most of the trucks will be going to I-55. So if you're exiting the park, the green arrow is 0.21 miles. If you're entering the park and coming from I-55 to the west, the blue arrow is 0.4 miles. That is the total distance that these trucks will be driving on city streets. Other than that, it's all interstate. So they're not passing houses and causing difficulty. So the length of time that they're on the roads is very, very minimal by virtue of the property being so close to the road. In addition to that, we've done a trip generation report. You have 625 employees and you have trucks coming and going. What is the traffic that we'll be putting on the road? And based on estimates that we have from trip generation, we think there'll be about 3,500 both cars and trucks created traffic on Getwell Road. And Getwell is designed for 52,800. So this is 6% of the capacity of what Getwell Road is designed for. So not only will they not be traveling much in the way of distance, they will not be creating much snarl in terms of traffic for the small amount of time they're on the road. So summary is what I said before. These are going to have a great appearance. They're going to be heavily landscaped. The economics are going to create jobs. They're going to create revenue for the city quickly within 2 years. It will not cost the city much to maintain and operate them on an ongoing basis. And there's minimal, by virtue of the fact they're so close to the highway, there's minimal traffic impact. You can hardly say that about any other light industrial zoning if you look all over the county, light industrial zoning, you can't say you can't make these traffic claims. This is just unique in that it is so close to I-269. So those are just general comments we have, and happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any questions or comments?
The road, the road is not going to go all the way through. It's going to end with this. It's not going to intend to go all the way through to McInville.
We can do any one of a number of things. We can cul-de-sac. It depends on what the city would prefer. We can cul-de-sac it for now. If they wanted to allow it to go through, we could. I know there's sensitivity because of the high school over on McInville. So, for example, one idea would be one day it could be continued through, but only allowed passenger vehicles, not trucks. Does that make sense? In other words, autos, not trucks. Or we could just cul-de-sac it at that point. We do not need access to the west. We can do everything we need to do, and we're happy to do that going to the east. We're happy if that road is a private drive or if it's dedicated to the city, whatever the city would like to do in that regard. So, not necessary at all for it to connect. One day when Tullahoma comes in, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but that's not necessary for our development.
Beach, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What do we have zoned? I don't have it in front of me, but what do we have zoned to the west of that all the way back to 55? West of that? It's all open land right through there?
The,
I believe it's all right, isn't it, to the corner?
Is it all A?
a lot of it, you know, when you get over to, yes, this is about halfway in, there's a copy of the zoning map.
Yeah.
In your staff report.
Yeah,
Yeah. You can see that it's all A as far back as 55. You can see where McInville Road, you know, comes up through there, that's all A. As you move north of the property, it's AR. As you move further north towards Pleasant Hill Road. And then, of course, it's A to the south of the interstate as well. So it's all, you know, pretty much A. You don't get into any kind of commercial zoning really until you get to the interchange there at McInville and Green Tea. Of course, the nearest industrial zoning is over on Highway 51, which I believe that is where the AWG project is ongoing.
That's M1 as well.
But that area in the comprehensive plan, BJ, is all more commercial mixed use?
Yes.
All of that west too? So, future plan?
Let me see here.
Future plan it goes mixed use even to the west of 55. So all north of 269 and west of 55 and then east of 55 is all mixed use. That's the 900 acres I was referring to.
Another question, the 269 corridor plan, also, do we know what, I don't have it in front, I wish we could pull that up, you know, in these meetings so we could look at it.
I tell you the truth, I have never seen one. You know, since it's a county plan and not the city's plan, you know, it hasn't really got any force within the city.
I know we heard once from, Corey, and I can't remember his last name escapes me, but on the southwest corner of Getwell and 269 about some
Yes.
commercial mixed use there.
Right.
That was,
A couple months ago?
would that be more like a PUD development? What was that, a PUD?
Yeah, it would be a planned unit development. You know, what they're talking about there is, you know, largely, you know, retail, commercial, you know, hotels, then some single-family townhouse development. You know, it's quite a mixed-use development in terms of densities and use types. And that is still ongoing. In fact, they're working on trying to annex that property into the city.
What about on the other two, the northeast and southeast corners of the intersection right there? Any idea has there been any?
Well, you know, I have not seen any plans. I've heard about the potential for development on the southeast corner, but I'm not aware of anything particularly on the northeast.
In what type of development were they looking at on the southeast?
I think it was same kind of commercial, residential type development.
Steve, this might be a question more for you, but, you know, I guess we all think about the truck that will be coming in and out of that place. Is there anything that the city has that enforces the truck route to strictly use that 69 corridor right there to get to 55? Because it's not in place.
Now. See why they would go anywhere else but
Well, we say that.
I know, true. So I would anticipate that there would be someone to address the trucks coming out and get them.
Is there any plan to improve Getwell as it is? I think north of there goes back to it's 2 lanes.
We certainly will do whatever is necessary in that stretch, where our property, or the subject property, let's get one.
Well, you've done a estimated traffic capacity.
Right.
Do you have an estimated truck capacity in and out of a complex like this with this?
Yeah, the 3,500
3,500 trucks.
trucks plus cars.
That's what I mean, do you have just,
And
how many
of that-
trucks would attract this, how many, let me say this right. This development, how many trucks would this development attract?
It's 3,500 total vehicles a day, and it's about a 5:1 ratio of autos to trucks. Now, like 7,000 trucks. I'm sorry.
No.
700.
That's a lot of trucks.
700 trucks that would come and go. That's both directions. Again, that's the total number of both cars and trucks, which is significantly more vehicles. By design.
I'll say, I guess as a comment, what concerns me the most is this is the entrance to Hernando from the east. People that coming from Tupelo, Nashville even, places like that are gonna be coming through there. This is the first thing they're gonna see, is gonna be warehouses.
Well,
And your plans look nice, but
we have a slide that kind of addresses that. Actually, yeah. Did you see this slide? No. So, basically, what we have here, I'm going to point to these. So, what we have here is the bottom number on all these viewpoints is the elevation of 269. What we have in the middle is either a hill or a valley. And the elevation at the top of each of these arrows is the elevation of the truck court. So taking your example coming from Nashville around 269, we have the benefit of a big hill on this corner. The elevation of 269 at that point is 319. The hill goes to 337. The truck court's at 316. So it would be impossible driving through here to see that building. Likewise, it would be impossible to see this building. Once you get past that, you can see that the highway goes from 313 to 318 to 340 because it's developing the kind of overpass here. So at this point, you have a valley of 305, so you can see this building, but we have a landscape buffer here. Landscape buffer, same situation with this building, we have a landscape buffer here. This building, we have a landscape buffer plus this stream that's in is a do not touch buffer zone and it has trees in it already, we'll leave them. And so there's a natural tree buffer here. This building really won't be seen due to landscape. So Mother Nature has sort of created kind of a berm situation to where coming from the east, you really won't see any of this. Unless you look back over your shoulder, you might see something, but it's going to be buffered.
these buildings are gonna be taller than 10 feet, though.
Usually what people, when they talk about, and we had this with Olive Branch, we were talking about our development in I-22 Logistics Center at Craft Road. What most planning folks want to see is the truck areas and the truck cores. Quite often, there are berms that are built up or landscaping high enough to hide the trucks. The tops of the building are not just concrete, they tend to be ornamental with varying roof heights and reveals and so forth. And so they're fairly attractive at the top. If anyone has an objection to a warehouse, it's usually the truck court. And so that's the argument I'm making. We can screen those. You will be able to see, now, the two buildings on the east side, especially coming from the east, you won't see them at all. You will see the tops of the buildings above landscaping for the three to the west. And the other point I'll make is the middle building, that truck court's behind. So it's all office parking on the front. So there are two truck courts on the western two buildings that are more visible. And those are the ones we'll need to screen with berms and landscaping. We can even do screening fences. We've done a number of things to really screen those areas.
They're gonna come back and ask us to give you a variance to not put parapet walls up or anything like that on the buildings.
Oh, you mean to hide?
We just have that come up a lot.
Yeah, right. To hide rooftop equipment? Yeah, no, we understand all that, particularly when you have a vantage point of a highway down to rooftops. It's important. Yeah, we want to ask for variance to hide that stuff. We know you have to do it.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McDaniel?
Back to the complex, I'm stuck on the location right now. There's the future plan and 700 trucks estimated a day. That's one every 2 minutes, 30 an hour over the course of a 24-hour period. And clearly, we're not going to be driving in the middle of the night, but those peak times during the day, especially Getwell being a major thoroughfare for rush hour traffic, that's my concern. Location.
Well, yeah. One comment I'd make is think about other, this is, ag zoning that it is currently is kind of a placeholder, right? At some point it'll be changed to mixed use or something else. Any other zoning type you can think of other than 5-acre residential kind of lots, or agricultural residential lots, are going to create more traffic than this will.
Right. No, it's a good problem to have when you grow.
Yeah.
But there's concern with, what's AGP, what's that grocery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, that, there's a lot of concern on what that's gonna cause because it doesn't have any direct access to 269.
You look at the path that a truck has to take from AWG to the highway, it's nothing like this.
No, this is a way better.
Not even close.
For sure.
So, I wanted to address that because that could be concerning, and this is just really unique in that, we got a quarter of a mile or a half a mile, depending if you're going east or west. So it's, or coming and going, it's pretty significantly minimal, if that's a appropriate word, phrase.
The only problem I have with it is it just is not in harmony with any of the future plans that we have, the comprehensive plan, I-269 plan, long-range plan. I mean, we have to have a plan and move in accordance with that plan, really, to be, so.
I understand.
I mean, if the plan changes, the comprehensive plan has not been adopted, and it would be worth visiting, with aldermen to, talk about that, but it just is not in accordance with any of the long-range planning.
And my humble comment to that is back to the 900 acres of mixed use. It'll be, our grandchildren's grandchildren will maybe be able to, say we need 900 acres of mixed use. That is a ton. That's 9 times the size of a typical mixed-use development. So I understand it doesn't adhere, but by the same token, at some point you gotta say, is this plan is this really real world? Is this going to be how this is going to develop? And, you know,
And it
one day
hasn't
will.
been adopted yet, so we're
Yeah,
still
I haven't-
talking about this.
I haven't seen that. I know.
So,
I haven't seen that one.
We're hammering that out
I've
as
not
well.
been privy to that. It's not. I guess it's not.
Well, a lot of DeSoto County has industrial warehousing. I mean, obviously, I mean, we've got a lot of it around here, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of deal, but, I mean, Hernando doesn't have that much, and I mean, there's a reason a lot of Hernando people live here instead of in
I understand.
other places.
And this really is prime location as well. It's the only thing I don't like about it.
Well, you've got, you know, even more prime is Mackingville. You know, this is 2 exits off. I would say there's plenty. And you have mixed use on the west side. So you've got a ton of, this is the least accessible of the 900 acres. So, thanks, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone here for or against this application? And if so, if you'll please come forward stating your name and address.
Thank you. Wayne Spell. I live at 401 Douglas Road, about a mile as the crow flies from this proposed development. Commissioner Skeen, you mentioned the I-269 corridor study a couple of times. I was involved in that study along with a lot of the residents of the area. You know, we put a lot of time in that. We lobbied for I-269 for the economic development that it would bring to the county and to Hernando. So obviously it was successful in doing that. I don't think this type development was envisioned in that study. I know this is in the city of Hernando and not in the county, but a lot of the residents in Hernando were involved in that. I've lived here 22 years. I've been involved in economic development pretty heavily for 22 years. Nice presentation Huntington did. I'm sure they've done that before. I've not done this before, to be honest. I have no doubt they'll build that. I think it'll be beautiful. My question for you guys is, do we need another distribution center, and do we want it right there? Getwell Road is probably the only road that runs the full north-south distance of the county. It may be 2 exits from I-55, but it is an entrance to Hernando, and there aren't a lot of them. We fought hard to get the Mackingville entrance, so we have that one, and we have Getwell. If you want to see warehouses and you want to see them well landscaped, you don't have to drive far to see them. You know, we've all seen them. We don't have to envision it. You can go look at them yourself. You can see nice shrubbery. You can see a lot of money invested in the shrubbery and the landscape, and the building looms large behind it. So it isn't going to hide the building. When you approach it from the west, you know you're coming down the hill. You'll see it. Granted, if you approach it from the east, Getwell interchange may block it, but if you're on Getwell, you're going to see it. I don't know really what else to say. I don't think we're hurting for 625 marginal jobs. I don't know about the tax density. I heard the comment about 500 homes. It wouldn't take long to put 500 homes there if somebody decided to do it. I do know about the truck traffic. They may get on and off the interstate quickly, but if you have plans to develop that in a commercial way, or the land north of there in a commercial way, those trucks are right there in between anybody that gets off the interstate to go to that future development. So I just will go on the record as being opposed to it. I don't see where it really benefits the quality of life that I think you guys envision for the city. So those are my comments, and I appreciate the opportunity to share them with you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
My name is Kenneth Stevenson, and I am living at 900 Getwell Road for about 27 years. As to the last comment that was made about that hill is going to block the vision of this building. Anybody that's been here 25 or 30 years knows there used to be a hill between Highway 51 and Highway 55. It's now a subdivision, and it's flatter than a pancake. So hills come and go, okay? I have a problem with water pressure. Now, I know there is something being done about that. They're building I read that they're building a new water tower somewhere over in that area. That'll help that. But he's talking about 680 individuals. Are you going to put a lagoon in there? Because there's no sewage. And there is no plans to put any sewage in there. No one has any plans to put any sewage in there. Now, they showed 2 buildings. And in between those buildings, he said that nature had provided them a natural, I don't recall its exact words. What that is, it's a runoff. It's a runoff from up at Laughter Road. You know how the hill that he's talking about, that runoff comes down across my property, and it's now 15 feet deep from where it should be. The bottom of that runoff ditch is 15 feet. When I moved there was no culvert on Getwell Road. I'm an engineer. I'm a degreed engineer. I watched them put the culvert in. I don't know how it's taking the abuse it's taking now, because though he said the traffic was low on Getwell Road and it could easily handle the number of trucks that we're talking about, I don't know when the last count was made over there, but I think that if you would do your research on it, you would find that at least twice a day, that road is totally saturated. I walked up to Pleasant Hill the other day. There was 26 automobiles waiting for the stop sign there, where eventually I think you're putting a traffic signal at Pleasant Hill and Getwell. I think that's in the plans already. Now, I would not say I'm against this. I would not say I'm for it. But I just want you to think about the things that I mentioned, the water pressure, the sewage. That road will never stand up under, it hardly stands up under automobile traffic. Now, you put some 80,000-pound trucks on it, and you'll be doing some road work, I guarantee you. And that drainage ditch, I don't know how they figure that's a natural beautifier for anything. It's an ugly, ugly ditch. And it's owned by the city of Hernando. They took it off of me when they put Highway 69 in there. You people own it, and you don't ever cut the grass. It's become a snake and rodent-infested area. You took 0.75 acres off of me, and you never cleaned it one time. I used to have it looking like a manicured lawn, but now it's overgrown in trees, snakes, and rats. So that's my part. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I think there's an awful lot of things that have to be done before we think about putting 680 people and 80,000-pound trucks on Getwell Road, okay? Thank you for listening.
I'm Pam French. I'm representing my mother-in-law, Noreen French. She's lived on Getwell Road, 1188 Getwell Road, for 54 years. She's seen a lot of changes. I actually served on the Preservation Commission here about 10 years ago. There was discussion during our Historical Preservation Commission about the future use of Hernando and how that Hernando was very much of a gem. We weren't your typical, we were the bedroom community of the county. Everybody worked in Memphis. They came to Hernando for peace and quiet. They didn't come here for industrialization and buildings. Her driveway will actually be on the very tip corner of the northeast corner of this property. There's a huge ditch in front of her driveway. She can barely get out as it is now. We are not against a commercial development, obviously, because 69 interchange is right there. However, there's no way the road, nor the sewer, nor the water can supply that. She was annexed by the city many years ago. However, she still has her own. She's on community water. There's not city water. She does not get any type of sewer. She's still in a septic tank. She just now got C-Spire. She had no internet, and considering that is a major thoroughfare between South Haven and Hernando, the amount of services she has is very minimal compared to what she did when it was part of the county. We would like to see more of an upscale development that was discussed during the Historical Preservation Commission. We actually went on a tour to Franklin, Tennessee, and we wanted Franklin to be our sister city. And we toured their good and bad developments, and they really encouraged us prior to our future use that we would really put a lot of thought into our development and that it would not come back to backfire later, 10 years down the road. I don't know how the road will handle the traffic. I don't know if there's any future plan to widen the road to handle that much traffic as it is now. There is no way possible that 700 trucks coming out of there a day, added on the school traffic that goes from North Point Christian School to Hernando and all the elementary schools back and forth. That is a major corridor. And since the interchange of 69 has come along, it may take her 10 minutes to get out of her driveway. So I want all of y'all to consider that that is a residential area on the other side from this future development is. And there is several developments in the county. You do not see any warehouse in the middle of development other than on South Haven on Airways. With the old ASICS development that was put the warehouse there. It's all camouflaged now with buildings, but it was an eyesore before South Haven developed that direction. I want everybody to consider that the buildings are pretty, but you still see the big Amazon warehouse on Highway 72, that you can't miss it. You can't miss the trucks for the Baxter development at the end of Goodman Road in Marshall County. And if you've taken a drive out that side of the county towards Marshall County, there are 4 corners, and every 4 corner will have a warehouse or future warehouse on it because the land is being developed and they see the signs, future warehouse use. So we just need to keep in mind, we never thought that Sears would go out. Who would ever think that Amazon may go out? Those big buildings could sit there, be empty at some point in our lifetime, or they may not. We don't know. But I just think that that would be considerations for you not approving this plan. Thank you.
My name is Lee Anderson. I live at 246 Chilahoma Road. This is my father's property. I'm representing him. For the most part, I guess I just want to say that, you know, this farm has been in our property and our family for over 100 years. It served its purpose for us, and, you know, now this is what we're looking to do with it. We did not ask for I-69 to get run through the middle of our property. It cut our property in two, and we didn't want it there. But, you know, we didn't have any choice in it. It came whether we wanted it or not. And with it comes this development. I mean, the county has, I was told, that, you know, wanted this type of development in that area. And I think if I have to live with an interstate in my backyard, which was a beautiful farm beforehand, that, and I'm okay now with the warehouse being there because that's just what comes with it. I didn't have any choice in the matter. But, and you talk about the mixed-use property, and it's not a big leap to go from the commercial and mixed-use zoning to this zoning. And you've got tonight, the property right across the road on Chilahoma is asking for a C2 zoning on 40 acres of mixed-use property. And, you know, that fills any gap that this might have. And honestly, this property is as well suited for this development as anyone you're going to find anywhere. I mean, you're not going to find a better place to build one of these buildings. And the looks of it is, and a little traffic is the biggest detriments. It's not going to be a big drain on the city. But anyhow, do y'all have any questions? That's all I got.
Anyone else here for or against this application? If so, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just wanted to be sure and draw everyone's attention we gave everyone a copy of this email that we received from Bob Barber concerning his issues with the proposal. He called me, said he wouldn't be able to be here tonight, but he did want to, register his concerns. So just wanted to be sure everybody saw that.
Last opportunity for anybody for or against this application. Commissioners, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend denial of rezoning request by Mr. Barry Bridgeforth Jr. on behalf of author W. Anderson Jr., owner of the property of 155.98 acres identified as parcel number 207-833-000-000-2001, located just west of Getwell Road North, east of Mackingville Road, and north of Interstate 269, situated in Section 33, Township 2 South, Range 7 West, from current zoning A Agricultural District to M1 Light Industrial District, based upon findings in the report 1 through 3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorn?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
The motion to deny passes.
Okay.
Mr. Page?
As I mentioned before, this being a rezoning, this is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the Board of Aldermen. It will be heard by the board at their second meeting in May. Why did I do that?
May 17th.
I think so, but let me just check. It is? Okay.
Third Tuesday's May 17th.
All right. May 17th, 6 o'clock in this room. The board does have the final say, so if you are concerned about this application, then you would want to be here for that meeting. So with that, sir, that's all the comments I had.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Page, item number 4, a request to rezone a 40.60 acre tract of land located on the west side of Chulahoma Road, north of Green Tea Road, Section 32, Township 2 South, Range 7 West, from A Agricultural to the C2 Highway Commercial District.
Okay.
Hawaii.
Okay, this particular piece of property is located north of Green Tea Road. If you think back, the location of the Field House development, and then right to the east of that, we rezoned another piece of property, C2, on Green Tea Road, that's actually shaped kind of like a T. This piece of property lies directly north of those, runs east and west out to Tullahoma Road. It's a 40-acre piece of property. It's currently zoned A agricultural, and they're requesting to rezone it to the C2 Highway Commercial District. The future land use map for the city's currently adopted general development plan identifies the subject property in the master plan residential low-density land use designation. This category is to provide for modern, attractive, and efficient development with access needs that demand location along major arterial roadways. This category strives for the highest quality private and public sector development. This includes nodes at interchanges along the I-269 Highway 304 corridor. It does not allow distribution centers and open space dedication is required. It is intended that land in the MPR designation be developed based on an overall plan, a master plan, prepared by the developers of the property and approved by the city. The zoning classification recommended by the general development plan for properties identified as the master planned residential low-density land use designation is the planned unit development district. Therefore, the applicant's request to rezone the property to the C2 Highway Commercial District would not conform to the recommendations of the general development plan, since the plan recommends the planned unit development district as the preferred zoning district for the MPR designated properties. Again, you are to consider the three criteria. I have provided you with the applicant's response to those three criteria, as well as any staff comments that we have. This request will go, once the Planning Commission makes their recommendation, it will be submitted to the Board of Aldermen on May 17th. Any future division of the property shall occur through the subdivision process as defined by the City of Hernando subdivision regulations. I have attached to your staff report copies of the A Agricultural District and the C2 Highway Commercial District regulations from the zoning ordinance for your review. And evaluating this rezoning application, the staff would note that since the Madison Lakes PUD is located south of Green Tea Road, the land use there is relatively fixed. However, as noted above, the subject property and all the property to the north and west of the subject property are all large acreage properties that fall within the master planned residential low-density land use designation. Of course, the basic question, if the commission is to consider the rezoning, basic question is, how far east along Green Tea Road will any future commercial zoning be considered? Obviously, because this is a east-west located piece of property, its frontage is on Tullahoma. It's not, doesn't have frontage on Green Tea. I have given you, of course, a motion to approve with suitable findings for the three criteria, as well as a proposed motion for denial with suitable findings. And of course, you always have the ability to table the application if you feel that you need additional time or additional information to come to a decision. So with that, that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address in its entirety? Anybody here representing the Francis Ann Luckett Revocable Trust? Wants to speak on behalf? there anyone here for or against this application? Please come forward, stating your name and address.
How y'all doing? My name is Charles Craig. I live on Tullahoma Road, right next to where this property faces the road. Have you ever been over to Green Tea in Tullahoma where it all collides right there? It's a very narrow stretch of road.
Mr. Craig, what was your physical address?
My address is 515 Tullahoma Road, Hernando, Mississippi, 38632. We also were annexed by the city several years ago, received no city services. It's basically no man's land. You call the police, they act like they don't service out there. We are our own septic tank, been told many times it'll never happen. The property in question has no frontage to Green Tea. It's blocked in. Our road to Tullahoma drops off a embankment that is not even wide enough for 2 vehicles. To zone this commercial, what traffic would be coming in here and what would be done about the road? I mean, I worried about my teenage children leaving to go to Hernando High School on this road daily for years. I just don't see the point. You know, I know Mr. Drumright, he got the field house put in and that's zone commercial. And I'm not against progress, but if it's gonna pin me down at the bottom of Tullahoma Road and I can't even get in and out of my road, you know, what's gonna be put in there? It just, you know, when he has no road frontage, I mean, there's no highway frontage to this. It's a secluded piece of property back off of Green Tea Road. There are houses that line up through there. So it doesn't make sense to me to even ask for it to be zoned that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alan Salt. I live 1860 Green Tea Road. This property is right behind us. And it kind of surprises me that they have no plan as to be what was to be developed or what's to go on. There's no real access for this property. I'm very concerned what's going to be coming up to my backyard, literally my back door of my house. This property comes, and they've already started clearing it out like it's a foregone conclusion that this thing's going to be pushed through and changed. I mean, they've totally stripped the land already. I mean, and if y'all know this place, it's a gravel pit. I mean, there's a big lake there that they pull gravel out of. You know, you get into another situation of soil stabilization in that area. Yeah, and the amount of money it's going to take to stabilize it. Plus, you got another 40 acres north of it up to the interstate. So it sounds like something they're looking at just jamming through with no plan. I'm very concerned what's in my backyard. You know, with nothing between us and them, you know, no security plan, no access plan, nothing to, as far as the infrastructure of what's going to go in there. You know, I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of concerned what goes in my backyard. You know, this is my one place, this is my retirement home. You know, and I've got the 16 acres right behind it, to Green Tea. I haven't seen any kind of access plan. You know, I don't see how y'all can arbitrarily change it without a plan. You know, pretty much spoke my piece there. My neighbor feels the same way. Karen Bingham on Tullahoma Road. You know, she couldn't be here tonight. She was ill. You know, access is the main thing. You know, we're not against progress or any nice development or anything like that, but bring a plan. We show up to the meeting. You know, at least have the decency to show up and explain yourself on what you're doing. You know, other than that, I can't see anything, you know, being changed at this point. Bring a plan. Show us what's going on. We're concerned. You know, this was going to be my last house. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here for or against this application? Last call for anybody for or against this application.
And I think, Mr. Page, correct me if I'm wrong, but to address the last speaker's point, I mean, this is supposed to be a planned unit development.
Okay.
that's the intention.
All right. In terms of the plan's recommendation, the plan's recommendation is for planned unit development. Okay. The applicant, of course, is requesting C2 zoning, all right? One thing that I did want to point out, which relates back to what the last speaker mentioned. C2 is a standard zoning district. As such, it does not require submission of a plan, and because it's not a planned district where we're developing a project text and talking about a list of uses, as I know I've mentioned more than one time, is in considering any rezoning, you need to be sure that you're comfortable with everything that's on the list. It's not really important what the applicant may or may not want to do, because once the property is rezoned, if it's rezoned, it becomes eligible for anything that's on the C2 list. And if the applicant, for whatever reason, decides not to follow through on their plans and decides to put the property back up for sale, anything that's allowable in C2 can go in there. Right? And that's why I have given you copies of the C2 district regulations in your staff report. Because as I have said before, if your consideration, is for approval, you need to be comfortable with everything that's on that list, because any of them would be eligible to go in there. So that's the only comments I have.
Now, Mr. Sal, I hope that answers some of your question. I mean, the city prefers a plan, but they're asking not to have a plan, is what the request is. Just to have the general C2.
They just want to rezone without a plan. They put anything in there.
That's,
And your backyard, bro? Come on. We got five, we'll fight.
I'm going to ask you to please come forward and speak if you'd like to.
I didn't mean to open a can of worms. I started that, so that's all.
And the biggest thing is plain as day does not conform to the general development plan. And I don't know how it would with that piece of property, in my opinion. Because again, Tullahoma Road that goes through there where this is going, it's barely a one lane.
Road, yeah.
If Tullahoma cut all the way through, then it might be something but I don't see it right now.
It's an access issue.
Yeah, it's an access to existing homes there, really.
Yes.
It's hard to approve something. I mean, we have a plan and we need to follow the plan, The general development plan,
269 is causing a stir.
the comprehensive plan.
I see merit for commercial being there just because it's surrounded by it, but there is no access to it, so I don't know how.
That's the
Yeah, I
part.
agree. Yeah.
Is there anyone else here for or against? Commission, do I have a motion?
A motion to recommend denial to the Board of Aldermen on the rezoning of parcel number 2079-3200.0-quad05.00. Francis Ann Luckett removable, I don't know, revocable, I can't say the word now.
Revocable.
Revocable trust property, which is a 40.60 acre tract located on the west side of Tullahoma Road, north of Green Tea Road, east of Mackingvale Road, section 32, Township 2 South, Range 7 West from A Agricultural District to C2 Highway Commercial District based on the following findings, 1, 2, and 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
The motion to deny passes. Somebody grab Mr. Burbalow, please.
Mr. Page, do you want to tell them the same thing, because that'll technically come before the Board of Aldermen?
This will be taken up by the Board of Aldermen on May 17th. Yeah, 6 o'clock here in this room. Yeah, so the board has the final decision. This is just a recommendation, to the board.
All right, Mr. Page, moving forward, item number 5, a request for approval of an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance, more specifically to add accessory dwelling unit to the list of conditional uses in the AR Agricultural Residential District.
All right. We have had, from time to time, a number of requests by people to include accessory dwelling units, on their property, And usually it's something that starts out, as an accessory dwelling unit for like an aged parent or some other, relative. Of course, there's no way to, once something is there, there's no way to control that that's the way it's always going to be, or that it's going to, go away, if the aged parent, passes on or goes to the nursing home. So basically, we have no way to address that. Anyway, we've had a request to add accessory dwelling units as a conditional use, which means that anybody that wanted to do it would have to come, back to the Planning Commission for approval. But anyway, to the list of conditional uses for the AR Agricultural Residential Districts, okay? Now, an accessory dwelling unit is a small, self-contained living unit that typically has its own kitchen, bedrooms, and bathroom space, often called granny flats, elder cottage housing opportunities, mother-daughter residences, or secondary dwelling units. ADUs are apartments that can be located within the walls of an existing or newly constructed single-family home, or can be an addition to an existing home. They can also be freestanding cottages on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit, or a conversion of a garage or barn. Basically, the zoning ordinance currently permits ADUs in some of our commercial districts. C1, C2, C3. Additionally, Article 6, Section 1, Item 9, other provisions of the zoning ordinance, it states that in the A agricultural district, more than one residential structure may be located on the lot, provided the structures are situated so as to meet the yard requirements of an actual subdivision, and all property is vested in single ownership. So what that means is, basically, if someone ever decided to sell that other house, that the property could be legally subdivided. Considering the different zones and conditions already in place to permit ADUs in the city, A precedent currently exists to allow this type of dwelling. If the applicant's request is ultimately granted, the method by which ADUs in the AR district are regulated would be constrained by an ADU only being permitted if approved on a case-by-case basis. Therefore, a conditional use permit would be required for every ADU request in the AR district. And approval of the subject text amendment would only apply to the AR district. Furthermore, if the request to add ADUs to the list of conditional uses in the AR district is approved, a conditional use permit would be required for an ADU to be permitted at the applicant's address. Lastly, it is at the Planning Commission's discretion, however, staff recommends applying similar controls to those found in the agricultural district described above. An additional stipulation to consider adding would be that the exterior appearance of the ADU is compatible with the character of the residences in the neighborhood and or surrounding area. If the Planning Commission recommends approval of this request, the request shall then proceed to the Board of Aldermen for final approval. You have a motion to approve, a motion to deny, and of course, a motion to table. Under the motion to approve, it includes the following standards. An accessory dwelling unit is situated on the lot so as to meet the yard requirements of an actual subdivision. All property is vested in single ownership, and the exterior appearance of the accessory dwelling is compatible with the character of residences in the neighborhood and or immediate surrounding area. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address?
Todd Steele with AERC at 342 West Valley Street.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Steele? Do you have anything to add to that or anything?
I think, am I allowed to ask BJ a question? With the requirements under the A, or under agriculture, it requires the ADU to be, I guess, platted on a piece of property so that eventually it could be sold. If we know which project we're talking about here for Pete Cookston, this would be attached onto a detached garage already. I have fear that if we instill that portion of it, that I'm not sure that we can actually get the setback requirements. So is there a possibility of waiving that?
Well,
or is there a possibility of waiving that requirement?
That's the question for them.
Hey, Mr. Steele.
Setback variances.
So this is a great example because I was still confused on how the whole idea is. So you've got a detached garage, current residential property that they're wanting to add on to that garage as an ADU.
Correct.
Like an apartment or something.
Mother-in-law wing, yes.
So that would constitute adding an ADU to the requirements. But then your second question was whether that interferes with the setbacks?
Well, there's a, under the approval, I think there's under the motion to approve, I believe the first requirement would be that
meet the yard requirements of an actual subdivision, right?
And so, meet the side, back, the other side. I can meet the front, but it's all on one lot. So, but this is one particular project we're talking about. Since I've started this process, talking to BJ, at AERC, we've had calls for ADUs, 5 more. So now most of them are in zones that I don't think they'll ever be allowed. Some are for AR, so this is something that would continue.
I think the issue in this particular case, is that, if you have a detached garage, you know, as long as it's at least 10 feet from the house, you know, or more. It can be as close as 5 feet to the side property line and 10 feet to the rear property line, okay? Which is not the setbacks for the principal building, you know, in AR. You know, you have to have more of a side yard, you know, sometimes more of a rear yard, you know. So if the thing is built as a garage and then converted to an apartment, it probably wouldn't meet the same requirements.
We mentioned it a minute ago, because in the future, if that property were to be split into 2 lots, then they both have to stand on their own merits to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the basic problem, you know. We could not create a violation. you
Couldn't
know
he
what I
just
mean?
request a variance?
Well, that's true.
And that we can,
Just a, yeah, setback variance for the detached garage.
But that's.
We
if
probably
that's-
shouldn't,
that's
shouldn't
if
call
this is
them
allowed.
granny
So-
flats, and either way, that's a little offensive probably to a lot of people.
showing your age, Scheme.
Right.
I think if this is approved as a conditional use, then yes, we could ask for the variance. But right now, they're not allowed.
So there's a conditional use question and a variance question, possibly based on this project.
Based on this project, yes. But I think, ultimately, I think we're asking for this to happen kind of along the broader sense of the AR, because the lots are big enough that they should be able to handle an additional living unit on the property.
Todd, you're expecting that if you get this approved, then every time someone would want to do this, they would have to apply for a conditional use permit. And then if they wanted to build it close enough to the property line, they get a variance. Still a case-by-case basis.
Still a case-by-case basis. Been interesting to see over the last couple of years. I've been an architect at this for 25 years. Transitioned into doing residential design down here. And how many people are starting to ask for this kind of work, even to the point of designing houses that already have it connected to the house, with a second living unit in there, which is really allowed, you know, to have basically a secondary living unit all under the same roof.
It's called a duplex.
Called a granny flat.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here for or against this application? Do I have a motion?
If I may,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I'm sorry. I was waiting for a break where I
Yeah.
could jump in there. But, you know, one thing I will say about this proposal, you know, which, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm necessarily promoting it, but one thing that I think is a positive is the fact that it would be an amendment to the conditional use list, because beyond the fact that it would have to come to you for approval, as a conditional use, it's a public hearing matter. And everybody adjacent would get a letter in the mail about the public hearing, okay? So if there are any concerns by neighbors about whether or not, you know, this accessory apartment, you know, should be allowed there or not, you know, this gives them the tripwire to know about it, you know, and to voice their concern. So I think that's a very positive thing about the proposal.
But because it's conditional use, it doesn't have to go to the alderman either, right, Steve?
No, not unless it's appealed, you know. But of course, one of the things to keep in mind is anybody can appeal it, you know, whether If you deny it, the applicant can appeal it. If you approve it and there's a neighbor that doesn't like the idea, they can appeal it, so, if anything, if you get into any kind of controversy, it can always wind up being appealed, but where there is no controversy, yes, it would be a final decision.
Even tonight's approval wouldn't go to the alderman, right?
What?
Would this be something the alderman have to approve, or would?
Yes, basically,
This proposal,
this is what's called a text amendment, which follows the same approval process as a map amendment. And there's really two kinds of zoning amendments. You can either change the map, or you can change the text of the ordinance itself. So, like I said, they both follow the same approval process.
There's not any more discussion. I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion to recommend approval of an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance to add accessory dwelling unit to the list of conditional uses in the AR agricultural residential district with the following additional standards. The accessory dwelling unit is situated on the lot so as to meet the yard requirements of an actual subdivision. All property is vested in single ownership, and the exterior appearance of the accessory dwelling is compatible with the character of residences in the neighborhood and/or immediate surrounding area.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
The motion for a request of approval passes. Mr. Page, item number 6, request for approval of an amendment to the text of Lee Summit Planned Unit Development Project text, more specifically to add self-storage mini warehouse to the list of uses permitted in Lee Summit PUD.
Okay. This is similar to, but not exactly the same thing as what we just did. As you know, in a planned district, like PUD, we have a project text that establishes things like what the setbacks are in the development, what the permitted uses are in the development, if there are any kind of architectural standards or landscaping standards or things of that nature that will apply, within the planned unit development. So in a sense, the project text is the zoning ordinance for that particular planned development. So what we're talking about here is an amendment to the project text to add a use to the list of permitted uses, okay? And that's self-storage mini warehouse. Of course, when the PUD was originally approved, that was not included, in the list of uses at that time. The applicants, have a piece of property which we'll actually be discussing at the next item of the agenda, which is Lot 1 of Phase 5B, where they're looking at dividing the property between some frontage lots and then a lot on the rear that would be a potential site for a mini warehouse development. Their view on this, and I'll certainly let them address this more, but, they're looking at the fact that we have had now all of this business development and residential development in that area. And at this point in time, the only self-storage on the east side of 55 is north of Commerce Street. And, the only other one is on the other side of 55 down McCracken. I think Hamilton Storage is down that way. So they feel like it's a good location to serve the residences and businesses on that side of 55 that have grown up, over time. I have given you the 3 criteria, and you have the applicant's response to the 3 criteria, as well as staff comments or responses to those 3 criteria. If this is approved by the Planning Commission, application will be heard on May 17th, because this is, again, a zoning amendment situation. Although the applicants are specifically interested in this amendment due to their desires to develop Lot 5B of Phase 5 of the Lee Summit PUD as proposed, if the amendment is approved, it would change the potential permitted uses for any C4 designated property in the Lee Summit PUD, okay? Not just, Lot 1 of Phase 5B. As the staff previously noted, the only current zoning district that lists self-storage mini warehouse is under the conditional use list of the C2 district. The C2 district also establishes certain threshold conditions that must be met by all self-storage mini warehouse developments in any C2 district, and I've listed those for you in your staff report. The staff suggests that if the commission considers making this adjustment to the Lee Summit PUD, that in addition to making many warehouses or self-storage developments permitted uses, that we include these same threshold requirements. Even though this involves a PUD, Article 10 of the city's zoning ordinance, buffer yard requirements does establish buffer yard requirements for C4 designated properties. I've given you a motion to approve, including those conditions, and I've given you the appropriate findings, as well as a motion to recommend denial, and you always have the option to table if you feel like you need more time to consider the application. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Mr. Page, you mentioned no mini storage south of Commerce. There's one right next to the Toyota.
Right across the
Is
street.
there?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a newer one, yeah.
Okay.
I thought, I'd make sure I wouldn't.
I
It's
tell you
brand-
what, Mr. Jordan,
Couple of years old.
half the time when I am researching this stuff, I'm going off a aerial photograph that was taken in 2019. So, it's always possible that there's going to be.
This is your mulligan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hernando self-storage is like literally a stone's throw across the street.
North of Commerce. They were talking about south of Commerce.
Yeah, pretty much, well, pretty much, yeah.
That's right, I didn't understand. Yeah, it's just. Hernando loves these things. Apparently, they get rented.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Page? Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address?
Hi, I'm Greg Russell with Neil Schaefer Engineers. My address is 5740 Getwell Road, South Haven, 38672.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Russell? Anything to add, Mr. Russell?
Well, yeah, I would like to just add, the property across, you mentioned a storage unit across the street, the facility across the street. Nothing against them, but it sits up high on a hill. It's very prominent in that area. This piece of property is characterized by sloping from Mackinville to the east. And as you'll see on the next application, there's quite a good bit of noticed buffer around this piece of property. And then we're also asking for those 3 lots out on Mackinville. So this piece of property, this proposed unit will not have, you won't be able to see it, I guess. I don't want to be like the application before us and say you won't ever see it, but it's going to be buffered. It's going to sit down lower. The access is going to be off of Monteith. It won't be off of Mackinville. That's all I had to add. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Would it be on lot 4 of the next?
Yes.
Okay. Of the next.
I guess my concern is not so much what it looks like, that's kind of irrelevant, it's just having another service like mini storage, general neighborhood in the same neighborhood.
I couldn't hear him.
I'm sorry,
I can't hear anyway. So.
my concern is not so much what it looks like, is that there's already an existing business like that right across the street. It's like an overkill. Why put another mini storage in the same neighborhood? That's my big,
with all due
big
respect,
question.
you could say that for any business. I would love to say you can't have any.
Well, we don't have two Taco
engineering
Bells
firms
across the street from each other, or two Wendy's or anything like that. I mean, we don't have two of the same things in the same neighborhood.
There's an engineering office right across the street from my office. I would love to say you can't do that.
If I could, answer that question.
State your name and address, please.
Chad Fisher, 8888 Mid-South Drive, Olive Branch. So that storage across the street is strictly climate control. We're actually working with the same management group that manages that.
They're fully what?
Sir?
You said they're fully what?
They're fully occupied.
Okay.
There's no vacancy there. So, after reaching out to Absolute Management, which actually manages that storage, Mr. Ward actually wanted to come and say, hey, we want to partner with you guys because there is one thing it does, there is another one there, but where we sit off of Mackinville, great transition from the commercial to the church. Traffic.
Is there a survey of some type that demonstrates the need for another storage in that vicinity?
So actually, I just did a survey for, if you're familiar with Church Road, all facility.
Right.
It's also fully occupied. Venture Drive. So we're literally a quarter of a mile away from the highly feasible. So, grows with spout rents. I haven't done one for this project, but with the management company, partner with us on the project.
You talking about a feasibility study or something?
What's changed since this PUD was approved that now it necessitates a mini storage? I guess what's different?
Rooftops. The amount of commercial you have over there. Hernando's population has grown, but we've also got a ton of growth coming from DeSoto County that's coming straight into Hernando. I live in DeSoto County. Everything I do is here in Hernando. I would say rooftops.
So, I mean, more development when y'all did this 10 years ago, I guess.
So actually, I'm not with Lee's Summit. Lee's Summit is who we bought the property from. So I actually didn't do the original
It was done like in 2004, something like that.
I saw
that was with the Walmart and everything else that came along.
I saw something that mentioned 2012. I'm sorry.
I think it was a revision.
That had to do with the revision that I guess created Phase 5 or revised Phase 5 into 5A and 5B. I think that was part of that sale to the church, which is just next door to the east of where their site is.
I actually believe there was, at one time, before that 2012 amendment, there was multifamily listed in the PUD.
Mm.
And they took it out, so I'm not sure why they took that out.
When did you acquire the property?
About 6 months ago.
Okay. I mean, you would have known then that PUD did not include mini storages.
Anyone here for or against this application? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend denial of an amendment to the project text of the Lee Summit Planned Unit Development to add self-storage mini warehouse to the list of permitted uses within the C4 designated areas of the PUD.
Second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark,
Nay.
Commissioner Thorne, Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
No.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Nay.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Nay.
Commissioner Skeen.
Nay.
The motion fails to deny the amendment.
Yes, we do actually need a motion to approve.
Okay.
Or a motion to table.
Yeah, that's true, also.
So is there another motion?
I'm still looking. What are all the, I mean, a full PUD text is not included, or is it in this?
No.
Is there a full PUD text?
No, I just gave you the list of uses.
I'm sorry, I mean, I'm just kind of going through all of it. And all the list of uses are where in this document?
All right. It's going to be,
Okay.
it's, if you go from the back,
All right.
it's on the third, starts on the third page from the back. It's got yellow on it, and then the second page from the back is the end of it, basically.
I might be looking at the wrong one.
I'm going to say, are you looking at the subdivision, or are you looking at the?
There we go, sorry.
I'm looking at this subdivision.
Yeah, see, that's the subdivision there, I think.
That was 1605.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And tell me again, why is it not? It says permitted uses. Just help me, walk me through this again, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, the thing to keep in mind about any PUD is that it has two elements. You know, it has the project text that gives you stuff like the list of uses and the setbacks and, you know, various types of provisions. And then it has a development plan,
Okay.
you know, that shows you their anticipated layout, you know, for the property. And as they mentioned before, at one point, the development plan for the Lee Summit PUD incorporated multifamily, okay? And when this revision was made in 2012, that split Phase 5, you know, into 5A and 5B,
Okay.
they took that out. You know, that was no longer reflected on the plan.
And that plan, we don't have that plan in front of us.
No.
I would like to make a motion that we table so I can just get my head around it. I'd like to see the full plan and I'm not following. I mean, I'd like to see the full plan, the full PUD, the full text, the
Okay.
amendments, all that. I make a motion to table.
Second.
Commissioner Clark,
Nay.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Nay.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Yay.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
So the motion to table, do we have a specific date we're gonna table this to, or?
Well, I would assume the next
The
month.
next meeting?
Okay, May 10th?
I have a question. Okay, the C4 district's in the PUD.
Yeah.
part. Okay, gotcha, okay.
Yeah, it
That's
gets a
why I
little
didn't see it.
confusing sometimes because,
I don't think it is.
you know, I try
It's
to
in the commercial.
encourage developers that do PUDs not to use like our existing zoning designations for the designations in their PUD, because then you're sitting there trying to figure out, well, is it governed by the PUD or is it governed by C4 district in the zoning ordinance? You know, and it just makes it more confusing, I think. But we're stuck with that, so.
Mr. Russell, when you come back in the table, one of the pieces that I need, along with what you're requesting, can we get a feasibility study on the value of adding another storage unit?
I think too, you know, we have to be very careful here, you know, because, you know, I don't want to intrude on our august city attorney's turf, but, you know, we have to be very careful that we're not straying into restraint of trade. Okay? Yeah, I mean, you know, we don't really have the ability to say, well, you can have this, but, you know, we don't want any more of them. You know, if the thing allows something to happen, you know, then you're pretty much
Well,
stuck
that's what
with
the
it.
proposal is adding something that's not currently. So to allow it,
I think, I agree with
Okay,
the Commissioner on that. It's already requesting to do something that's not allowed, to allow to restrain on
okay.
trade in that situation. I just don't think you're gonna be able to get a feasibility study by the next meeting.
But I can reach out to you.
yeah, we just have some more information on value of adding another.
Back in the day, this was a huge PUD. It included a massive amount of property, so there's not many there's not many that I know of, many tracts of land that are left in this PUD.
I just want to get my head around the whole, you know, I just don't have it in front of us, and we've been a little shorthanded staff-wise, so we don't get these reports and, you know, get a lot of time to go
Understand.
through, so, yeah.
BJ, I will have one more question before we close off on this item. You hate when I use, well, you don't hate the word, but we disagree on the word precedence is said. If we're changing the amendment to the text of Lee Summit's planned use development, where does that put us in, is that for all C4 or just this specific
Just
item here?
this, yeah, because this is the project text for the Lee Summit PUD. It doesn't have any applicability outside of the Lee Summit PUD.
So it's just not, it's not for C4 planned unit, but just Lee Summit. I just want to make sure we're
Right.
hardcore on, I see it there in black and white, but I want to make sure it's.
No, that's, you're correct.
All right, Mr. Page, item number 7, request for a final plat approval, re-subdivision of Lot 5B of the first revision of Lee Summit PUD into 4 lots, 10 total acres located on the southeast corner of McInville Road and Monteith Avenue in Section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West.
Well, before I begin my staff report, let me request, do you guys want to still go through with the subdivision at this point, or do you want to wait until next month? Go ahead. Okay. All right. Just wanted to be sure. Okay. This is a 4-lot subdivision. Basically, it's the southeast corner of Monteith and McInville Road. Lot 1 and 2 will each consist of 1.10 acres, while Lot 3 will consist of 1.20 acres. Lot 4 will consist of 6 acres. Lots 2 and 3 will have frontage on McInville Road, while Lot 1, being the corner lot, has frontage on both McInville and Monteith. Lot 4 has frontage only on Monteith Avenue. All 4 of the lots will have access to an internal, as yet unnamed, cul-de-sac. Under the approved project text, Phase 5B is limited to 1 joint access point on McInville Road and 1 access onto Monteith Avenue. All of the lots have access to city water and sewer services. The subject property is located on the, oh, that's not right. Yeah, I got a little something in there that's not right, but anyway. The subject property is currently designated as C4 under the Lee Summit PUD's approved master plan. All the lots will meet the following yard requirements. You have them all listed there. Under the approved project text for Lee Summit PUD, a 30-foot wide non-disturbed landscape easement is required along both the east and south property lines of the development, including a 6-foot tall wooden fence with brick columns every 40 feet on center. Because these buffer yards are non-disturb in nature, they are also exclusive of utility easements. And I've included in your staff report a copy of the landscape buffer map from the project text that shows you, the locations. All of the proposed lots are of sufficient size to meet the development requirements of the Lee Summit project text. This is final plat approval. If approved, it will go to the Board of Aldermen at their meeting on April 19th. The plat, as it's currently drawn, does not accurately reflect the buffer yards approved with the Lee Summit PUD project text. The project text requires a 30-foot wide non-disturbed landscape easement along both the east and south property lines of Phase 5B, including the 6-foot tall wooden fence I mentioned before. The buffer yard is required to be exclusive of the utility easement along those property lines. The submitted plat reflects a 30-foot wide buffer yard along the eastern boundary, but is drawn reflecting the associated utility easement being within the buffer yard, not outside the buffer yard, as required by the project text. There is also a shaded area reflected along the eastern property line, but it is unclear what it represents since it's not as wide as the required buffer yard, nor does it extend all the way to Monteith Avenue as reflected in the approved project text. Additionally, the submitted plat only reflects a 10-foot wide buffer yard along the southern boundary line that only extends along the city property in the southeast corner of the property. The approved project text requires a 30-foot wide buffer yard along the entire southern property line of Phase 5B, which would also, again, be exclusive of the associated utility easement. Since the approved Lee Summit PUD project text permits only 1 joint access point for all 3 of the frontage lots along McInville Road, consideration may also be given to providing some cross-access easements between lots 1, 2, and 3. I have given you a motion to grant final approval to the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Phase 5B of the first revision of Lee Summit PUD. And basically, the following conditions First, revise the title of the plat to read the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Phase 5B, the first revision of Lee Summit PUD. The plat calls it the re-subdivision of Lot 5B. The project text and the preliminary development plan does not reflect it as Lot 5B. In fact, I've included in your staff report a copy of the legal description and survey that was included in the project text that shows it as being lots 1 and 2 of Phase 5A and 5B. So it just needs to be cleaned up. Revise the plat to identify the 30-foot wide buffer yard along the eastern and southern boundaries as 30-foot wide, no disturbed buffer yard easement. Either remove the shaded area reflected along the eastern boundary or extend it to the full 30 feet of width and north to Monteith Avenue as reflected in the approved project text. Revise the plat to reflect the 30-foot wide, no disturbed buffer yard easement along the entire southern boundary. Revise the plat drawing to reflect the associated utility easements along the southern and eastern boundaries outside of the 30-foot buffer yards, not as being inside the buffer yard areas. Revise the plat drawing to reflect cross-access easements between lots 1, 2, and 3, and revise the owners and mortgagee certificates to use our current wording concerning the dedication of roads and utility easements. And then items 2 through 10 are standard subdivision conditions. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address?
Greg Russell with Neil Schaefer, 5740 Getwell Road, South Haven, 38672.
Questions or comments for Mr. Russell?
Y'all are okay with Mr. Page's recommendations on the buffer yard?
Yes, that was my intent to follow that. I'm not sure where I got that only a 10-foot was required behind the fire department. I would like, the hatched area there is what we proposed as on the plat as the no disturb buffer.
All I can tell you, is that.
I understand.
There's a.
But it's not shown, all of this property, like I spoke before, all of this property drains back to the northeast corner. And there's a drainage, couple drainage pipes that stub out into that corner. All of the flow from Toyota comes across and flows down that south side of Monteith. And there's going to have to be a good bit of work right there in that corner with storm drainage structures and so forth to handle that erosion. So it's not practical to extend that no disturb all the way up. I'm sure we'll be happy to add landscaping to reestablish some of that, but a no disturb is not practical. We physically can't do it.
The only problem is that's in the project text. It becomes a situation where if you don't want to do that, we have to basically do the same thing we did, with the proposal to add the use to the use list. Because you're talking about changing the development plan, so that's the only problem I have with it. I guess what I'm saying is I could care one way or the other, but it's just a procedural issue at this point.
Since the previous application was tabled, can we modify that application to include this modification to that portion of the buffer?
Probably.
BJ, that hasn't been advertised, though.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about delaying it to the next planning commission meeting so we could re-advertise. Would we have to charge them a second fee, though?
I don't know.
I mean, that's what covers the cost of the ad. We'll look at it.
Okay. No, sir, we don't have a problem with the buffer.
So we would approve this tonight, and then y'all would address those issues in the when it comes back up at the next meeting.
Yes.
We would have a statement in there, I guess another note about addressing that in the project text. It would be contingent upon the project text being amended. In other words, okay.
But it's amended in here the way your motion reads, right? I mean, you changed it the way your motion reads to be consistent with the plans as they were previously submitted, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I followed. So I mean, so I don't think anything has to be contingent at this point. It'd just be addressed in the next.
Right.
the
Yeah,
next
at this point,
application. Yes.
what this motion does is require them to meet the project text as it stands.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
What we would do coming back in May would be coming back with an additional amendment, to the project text, addressing this issue, with the buffer that he just brought up.
When we would come back in May, this is a final plat approval.
Right.
Why would we come back in May?
Well,
The
they're
previous.
asking
Oh, the
for
previous,
a-
got it.
Yeah.
Because it's all gonna be on that lot 4, where the change would be.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's what would matter.
And of course, everybody has the constitutional right to petition their government, whether we necessarily agree with what they're asking or not. So,
And I don't think there's any way we could record a plat, before all that hearing goes forward. So if there was a required change on this plat, we could make it, before it's recorded. There wouldn't be a conflict there, is what I'm saying.
it would probably be good, Greg, if you could get some photographs so we could see the situation.
Sure.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Russell? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Russell. Is there anyone here for or against this application? Commission, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant final plat approval to the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Phase 5B of the first revision of Lee Summit PUD, 4 lots, 10 total acres, located on the southeast corner of Mackinville Road, Monteith Avenue, in Section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirement of the city's codes and ordinance, subject to conditions 1 through 10.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins. Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Motion to approve passes. All right, Mr. Page, we got item number 8, request for a final plat approval, Trans Development Commercial Subdivision, 1 lot, 4.52 acres, located on the northeast corner of Green Tea Road and US Highway 51 in Section 1, Township 3 South, Range 8 West. The property is currently zoned in the C2 Highway Commercial District.
Okay. This is a one-lot subdivision. It's another one of those convenience store situations where we found out later that the lot had never been approved. This is a 4.52 total acres, so it's bigger than, greater than, wider than all the requirements of the C2 district. It has direct access onto Green Tea Road. It has access to water and sewer and all those other good things. You have a motion to grant final plat approval. We need to revise the plat, the owners and mortgagee certificates to use our current wording regarding the dedication of roads and utility easements. We need to identify the lot as Lot 1, and we need to complete the section corner tie-in note. The rest of the conditions are our standard subdivision conditions. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Mr. Russell, if you will.
Greg Russell, Neil Schaefer, 5470 Getwell Road, South Haven, 38672.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Russell?
Big sign that says Exxon there, is that what
That's it.
it's gonna be? Okay.
It's surrounded by right-of-way on all, that's kind of a triangular piece of all three sides. Green T, 69, and Highway 51.
Any other questions or comments?
Can we get a different name for the subdivision? Hasn't anybody talked to these guys about the name of the subdivision?
Took me a second.
It took me a second. It runs deeper than that, because that's their company's name.
Oh, it'd be hard to
But
change.
still,
It's bringing Hernando.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Mr. Russell. Is there anyone here for or against this application? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant final plat approval to the Trans Development Commercial Subdivision, one lot, 4.52 total acres, located on the northeast corner of US Highway 51 and Green T Road in Section 1, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's codes and ordinances, subject to the following conditions in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Gordon.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Motion to approve passes. All right, Mr. Page, does anyone need a break before we go to the next item? We good? We ready to roll on? Get out of here?
Let's go.
Okay. Item number 9 is a request for a final plat approval.
Yellow week.
Creekside subdivision, 2 lots, 4.63 acres, located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of McInville Road in Section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West. The property is currently zoned in the C2 Highway Commercial District.
okay, this is just a little two-lot subdivision located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, just east of McInville. Lot 1 consists of 2 acres, while Lot 2 will consist of 2.63 acres. So once again, it's bigger than, greater than, wider than all the requirements of the C2 district. It has direct access onto Creekside Boulevard, it has access to city water and sewer, and all those other things. It does have a Blue Line Creek along the eastern border of the subject property that includes a very narrow amount of floodplain. I've included a copy of the map in your staff report, for your review. The plat includes a 30-foot wide drainage easement and a 50-foot wide preserve area, which should be sufficient to cover the narrow floodplain in that area. This is final plat approval. There is, on an earlier plat, there is a recorded 30-foot wide sanitary sewer easement that runs along the south and east property lines of the subject property. And I have included a copy of that. It's called the McInville Commons subdivision, and it was recorded in 2007. So I think that needs to be included, in the plat. And the reference to the 50-foot wide preserve area should be revised to read a 50-foot wide no disturb landscape easement to clarify its exact purpose. which I might add ties into a already recorded no disturb buffer area that's on property south of Creekside that runs along this creek. Of course, you've got a proposed motion. We need to revise the 50-foot preserve area to read 50-foot wide, no disturb landscape easement. Revise the plat drawing to correct note number 5 to state the utility easement along the rear property line of the lots is 10 foot wide, not 5 feet. Adjust the plat drawing to reflect the utility easements to the proper scale. Label the utility easements on the property lines accordingly. Revise the plat drawing to correct note number 6, which says that the property doesn't lie in a floodplain. It does. Revise the plat drawing to reflect the previously recorded 30-foot wide sanitary sewer easement, and revise the owners and mortgagee certificates to use our current wording relative to the dedication of road right-of-way and utility easements. From there, the rest of the conditions are our standard subdivision conditions, and that's my report unless anyone has any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Mr. Nick, your show.
Nothing to add, unless y'all have questions.
For some of those that may not know you, if you'll just state your name and address for us, please.
Nicholas Croonin, address is 3629 College Road, South Haven, Mississippi.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all know you by now, so you're a regular. Any questions or comments for Mr. Croonin?
Yeah, the only thing I see is that sewer easement. It goes along, you said the east side, but also the south side, right, of this property?
Yeah.
This is older plots.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that you might want to look at, Nick, is I'm not sure if the line, as it runs along Creekside, it might actually be in the right-of-way of the road now. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell from the plat.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because the road wasn't there on this earlier plat.
Yeah. So you might
We've got
want
the sewer line shot in, we can make sure
Okay.
it's exactly where it's at.
Yeah, I just want to be sure the easement gets on there.
We all putting in there? You know?
Hotel.
Hotel?
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Croonin? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here for or against this application? And is there a motion?
I did the last one. So I did the last one.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to grant final plat approval to Creekside Commercial Subdivision, 2 lots, 4.63 acres, located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of Mackingbell Road, north of East Commerce Street, in Section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirement of the city's codes and ordinances, subject to the following conditions, and that's 1 through 10.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve passes. Rolling along, Mr. Page, item number 10, request for a final plat approval, Douglas Estate consolidation plat, 3 lots being combined into a single lot, .36 acres, located on the southwest corner of East Commerce Street and Ice Plant Lane in Section 18, Township 3 South, Range 7 West. The property is currently zoned in the C2 Highway Commercial District.
Okay. I think the chairman said it all. Basically you have an estate where the lot was divided into 3 pieces and given out to heirs of the estate. And then the 3 lots got purchased by Dale Wilson, who now wants to put them all back together into that original single lot. So that's the whole purpose of the plat, is to consolidate the 3 lots back into one. And basically, as far as the proposed motion, we need to revise the plat drawing to include the section corner tie-in. We need to revise the plat drawing to correct note number 5 to state that the utility easement along the rear property line of the lot is 10 foot wide, not 5. Adjust the plat drawing to reflect the utility easements to the proper scale. Revise the plat drawing to include a mortgagee certificate if necessary, and revise the certificates to use our current wording for dedication of right-of-way for roads and utility easements. And the remainder are standard subdivision conditions. I would note, of course, that because of the smallness of the property, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the road, when they do when they do move to develop the property, we'll probably see a setback variance of some kind. Because this has got 3 front yard setbacks, besides the fact that it's a small piece. It's got 3 different road frontages, and since it's commercially zoned, that means it's got a 50-foot front yard on each one of those 3. So they're probably going to need some kind of setback variance, whenever they figure out exactly what they're going to do with it. But that's just for your information. Anyway, that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Questions, comments from Mr. Page? Thank you, Mr. Page. Is the applicant here with us? Is there anyone here for or against this application? Is there a motion?
Motion to grant final plat approval for the Douglas Estate Consolidation Plat, combining 3 existing lots into a single lot with a total acreage of 0.36 acres located on the southwest corner of East Commerce Street and Ice Plant Lane in Section 18, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to requirements of the city's codes and ordinances, subject to the following conditions 1 through 9.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins? Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve passes. All right, Mr. Page, a request for a zoning variance to allow construction of a fence within the front yard setback and a design review variance to allow construction of a 6-foot-tall black cyclone site-proof fence rather than with compliant materials required by the design review ordinance. The subject property is located south of Nesbitt Road on the northeast corner of Nesbitt Drive and Braymont Drive in Section 25, Township 2 South, Range 8 West, more specifically known as 1308 Nesbitt Drive. The subject property is currently zoned M1 Light Industrial.
First off, let me mention that in the course of reviewing this application, I came to the conclusion that it was actually 2 zoning variances and not a zoning variance and a design review variance, because it's actually the zoning ordinance that specifies the materials that fences are made from. And that's the question, one of the questions involving this particular property. Anyway, so we have these 2 zoning variances, and the applicant they desire to construct a 6-foot-tall fence that would extend 40 feet into the required 50-foot front yard setback of Braemont Drive, which would bring the fence to the edge of the 10-foot utility easement along that street frontage. In the zoning ordinance, where it discusses accessory buildings and uses, and then that's where it talks about fences, does not allow fences taller than 4 foot in height to be constructed within a yard that adjoins a public street. The ordinance does provide an exception which allows construction of a fence no taller than 6 foot in height within the front yard setback of a corner lot, provided it is the front yard to the side of the structure as opposed to the front yard of the front of the structure. However, this exception is specifically limited to residential districts and does not apply to any other non-residential district. So, in order for the applicant to pursue construction of the proposed fence within any point of the Braemont Drive front yard setback, a variance would be required. Okay? The second variance involves a further variance of the same article of the zoning ordinance. In Article 12, it states that allowable fence materials are limited to wood, wrought iron, stone, and masonry. Vinyl and fiberglass composite materials may be utilized if the material is listed, designed, and constructed for fencing materials. Cyclone fencing is not listed as an allowable fence material, although the article does include a specific exception which allows in industrial zoned areas, cyclone fence material may be used in side and rear yards that do not forward face the public right-of-way. The cyclone fence shall be comprised of 9-gauge steel or below and covered in black vinyl or other similar material. So basically, in this particular situation, the exception does not apply because we have two portions of the fence that faces Nesbitt Drive and the fence that faces Braemont Drive. You know, it only allows the cyclone fencing in yards that don't face the street. So if you want to put the cyclone fence in a yard that does face the street, you have to have a variance. Okay? Everybody clear on that point? I see some
As
confused
mud,
looks.
clear as mud.
You know.
It's late.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are our two variance requests. You know, one having to do with the material and one having to do with the location in the front yard setback of Braemont Drive. Now, of course, we have 4 conditions that you are to review, or 4 criteria, excuse me, that you are to review in assessing any variance request. I've given you the applicant's responses to the 4 criteria as well as the staff comments. One thing that I did want to draw to your attention was that, of course, if you've been by the property, you will note that the fence is already up. It was erected without a permit, you know, and so that's how we got into this in the first place. The second thing I would draw your attention to is the fact that if you compared the photographs that we included in the staff report, it shows the fence on Braemont Drive. And it's clearly shown in the photographs that there's a driveway on Braemont Drive. But if you compare it with the site plan that was submitted with the application, the site plan does not show a driveway on Braemont Drive. But there is actually one there. So go by the photograph, you know, not necessarily by the site plan. So I have given you a motion to approve the 2 zoning variances with suitable findings. I have given you a proposed motion to deny with suitable findings, and of course you have the option to table the application if you so choose. So that's my report unless anyone has any questions.
So in that motion, when it is made, just to be clear for the commission, it's going to be two separate motions, correct?
Well, I've kind of combined them, but if you decide you want to separate them, we can.
Okay. That's what I want to just be clear of.
That's what I was asking. So one is the material, and the other is the variance of setback.
Right. Right.
Clear the mud. They're wanting to extend their fence.
Right. Yes.
The cyclone fence is chain link fence.
Yeah.
Same thing,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Well, I mean, I only see chain link fence on the gate part.
Well, this is chain link fence with, I forget, I don't know quite what the material is,
A
but,
mesh wrap.
okay.
A
Yeah, you
mesh-
take it.
It's a mesh cloth that they put over the cyclone fences. I think, John, you can explain it.
It's privacy slats that are in the chain link fence, so it's the plastic, slats that actually are woven through the. So I think when we first came before, I think if we were to have any parking in the back, it was gonna have to be a privacy. And it had to be the woven part, not the mesh that was on the fence that's across the street location.
So that's the material you're requesting? Cyclone fence with the slats?
Right, and it's basically just a privacy, so it's something that's more sustainable than wood, that'll last longer, that.
All the way around?
Well, the back and the sides that do not face the road don't have the privacy.
It's currently the wooden fence, right?
No, sir, it's a cyclone as well, which is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is required in the zoning. On the back and the sides.
Yeah, it's just on the front that you can't have it.
And that was an oversight on my part. Like I said, I'm asking for the variance. It is a corner lot, so they're, to be able to use the actual, all of the property, I would need to encroach into that 50-foot side setback or secondary front setback.
I mean, there's no easements that run through, it's just a setback. There's no easements that interfere with it, I guess I've got the plat right here.
The utility easement, but the piece proposed along that easement, not encroaching on the easement.
Yeah, the fence does not encroach on the easement. Thank you, that's kind of what I was trying to say.
Kind of all over the place on this, so what, tell me what the height, so the current fence is 6 feet? And you want to keep it at 6 feet all the way around?
Correct.
Cyclone fence, 6 feet all the way around?
Yes.
With privacy slats?
Your cyclone fence looks better than the cyclone fence at AWG.
I think it does.
And BJ, haven't we talked about having some kind of text change where we waive this 4-foot height? Did we do? We had a discussion, just generally, but we just never acted on it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's really kind of crazy because in the zoning ordinance, it talks about 4 foot, and then you go to the design review ordinance, it talks about 3 foot.
Just the materials and the type of fence.
And so,
Yeah.
it's definitely something that needs to be worked on.
In the front.
So we've recognized that 4 feet is not really it's something we should address, limiting them to 4 feet.
Well, I think there's that, and I think, with any issue, I think sometimes we tend to try and broad brush stuff and say, okay, this is the way it should be for everything. When sometimes I think there are some things that may be all right in the industrial zone that you would not necessarily want to allow in, say, a commercial zone or a residential zone. So, I think sometimes we need to take a little finer pencil to some of the stuff that we have in the past.
That's all I have.
I say you're listening to all this, aren't you?
Taking a lot of notes.
Just so I'm clear, so I understand what we're voting on here.
Yeah.
So we want to eliminate basically the requirement to put the fence on the setback and put it out to the property line.
On one
Material,
side.
the material change, I don't understand what the material change is, it's already a cyclone
You know,
It's
Other than
supposed
the
to be
compliant
wood or right
materials.
on, yeah.
Yeah, basically, the way
wood
the
iron.
ordinance, basically, the way the ordinance is set up is it allows you to put cyclone fencing in the side and the rear of your property, but then requires you to put some kind of compliant material across the front.
Talking about.
Yeah, that's the
And one like
material
industrial has
issue.
sort of a different.
That's the material issue. We're saying that, or I should say, he's requesting that he be allowed to bring the cyclone fence around onto the fronts, of Braemont and Nesbitt Drive, okay? Then, of course, the other thing is the ordinance requires the fence to be at the front yard setback. And on the one side, the Braemont Drive side, he wants to come out to 10 feet off the property line, okay, rather than 50 foot off the property line, okay? So those are the two requests.
Yeah, it's like we're saying, with light industrial zone is a little bit.
Right.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Page or the applicant, Mr. McBride? Is there anyone here for or against this application? And do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve two zoning variances. One, allowing construction of a fence within the front yard setback of an M1 zoned property, and two, allowing construction of a vinyl coated site-proof fence within the front yard setback of an M1 zoned property rather than with compliant materials. The subject property is 1308 Nesbitt Drive, located south of Nesbitt Road on the northeast corner of Nesbitt Drive and Braemont Drive in Section 25, Township 2 South, Range 8 West, based upon the following findings in A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Who's that?
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins? Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Steen?
Aye.
Motion to approve passes. Do we still require them to have to pay for a permit since they, for that
Oh, yeah.
fence? Okay.
Oh, yeah. If they haven't paid for one, they're gonna have to.
I know developers
Johnny?
know that stuff's supposed to be done prior to building it, so.
If you'll come get your permit, we'll issue the final.
Really?
Okay.
Request for final plat approval, Mr. Page, item number 12, so we can move forward. Request for final plat approval, Nesbitt Industrial Park, Phase 12, 3 lots, 6.41 total acres, located at southern terminus of Nesbitt Drive, south of Nesbitt Road, west of US Highway 51, and east of Gwynn Road in Section 25, Township 2 South, Range 8 West. The property is currently zoned in the M1 Light Industrial District.
Okay. Basically, this is the application for the city's new animal shelter. I think it's the big lot of the three, is where they're gonna put the animal shelter. Basically, this is a 3-lot subdivision, you know, it meets all the requirements of the industrial zone, it's in the Nesbit Industrial Park. Now, if recommended by the Planning Commission, it'll go to the board for final approval, and that's not right. It would be April 19th. Okay. Lot 1 and 2 have direct access off Nesbit Drive. Lot 3 has direct access off Nesbit Drive and Braemont Drive. You have the proposed motion. We need to revise the plat to include in the title block total acreage. We need to revise the owner and mortgagee certificates. We need to revise the plat to reflect a 10-foot wide utility easement at the front and rear property lines and 5 feet on the sides. Revise the notes on the face of the plat that there's a 10-foot wide utility easement on the front and rear property lines. Then from there on, it's the standard subdivision conditions. And that's my report, unless anyone's got any questions.
Questions or comments from Mr. Page? It doesn't look like we have an applicant here.
Or any opponents.
Or any opponents for or against, so there's not any other discussion. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to grant final plat approval for Phase 12 of Nesbit Industrial Park, 3 lots, 6.41 acres, located at the southern terminus of Nesbit Drive, south of Nesbit Road, west of US Highway 51, and east of Gwynn Road in Section 25, Township 2 South, Range 8 West, based upon the findings that the submitted final plat generally conforms to requirements of city codes and ordinances, subject to the following conditions 1 through 10.
There's a second?
Second.
Kevin.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne? Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brimble?
Like I said, I got about
Commissioner Hawkins? Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve passes.
Gotta get this animal shelter. Got to. Got to.
On other business, I would like to ask a question, Mr. Page, and I know I brought this up. We talked tonight about some of these applications. Is the first thing is you come into Hernando. I know we do not have a review committee for Hernando. However, what expectations with the amount of time with the gas station on McCracken and Commerce are they gonna do to fix that roof?
We have an application in our queue. I think it's under review right now, isn't it? Yeah, so it should be within, we've been pushing them.
I know I've been.
And it should be within the next, it should begin within the next month or so.
And I don't even know if it falls under planning, but has there been talks about property enforcement
We don't have staff for it.
staff? I mean, y'all don't have staff for anything right now.
That's a fair point.
I know the mayor had said that he was
At this point in
interested.
time, I don't believe that.
It was
that-
discussed, but like
Austin can
several
handle that.
years
He'll-
ago when
he'll be the
Jared was still
enforcement guy.
here.
Nothing recent on property maintenance, no.
And I guess we should and I apologize for not doing that, but for those that don't know, Austin Cordesi, did I say it right? Cordesi. So he is gonna be the new planning director for our great town of Hernando. You were the deputy?
The deputy director for DeSoto County right now.
County. So we want to welcome you, and I apologize for not beginning the meeting with that. So we hope that this meeting didn't cause you to run off.
No, I'm used to volume. I'm ready to get started. And just briefly, like you said, I'm currently deputy director of DeSoto County Planning Department. I live live in Hernando, I'm raising my family here. I'm excited to serve in this unique capacity. I'm ready to get started, ready to get to work, and obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on, so I look forward to working with y'all.
Definitely job security around here, so.
And just to follow up on that comprehensive things, I know we had talked about doing some little side meetings or something to start talking about that. Because we've got all this interest of rezoning all of this property around. Attracting a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think we need to really nail that
Well, it's one of those things, I was talking to Austin about it just before the meeting. You know, it's like every time we get to the point where we feel comfortable with starting, something happens, you know, whether it's, you know, an avalanche of work or, you know, Kendra leaving, you know, and it's just made it very difficult to get things together. You know, and hopefully that's something that we'll be able to get involved with, because, you know, some of the things that I've talked with Austin about, you know, that, you know, I'm particularly concerned about in terms of our proposed draft plan is, you know, in our current plan, if you go and look at the future land use map and it says that it's low-density residential, you can go to the narrative, and the narrative will tell you that for low-density residential designations, you know, the preferred zoning district is A, an AR, or something like that. Our draft comprehensive plan doesn't say that. It doesn't have that in there. So when you go and look at the future land use map and it says that it's, you know, master plan commercial activity, you don't know. There's nothing that says what zoning district that's supposed to be talking about.
Where can we help in terms of starting those conversations?
Well, I think now that Austin's here, you know, and, you know, he's in a little bit better position than Kendra was when she came to work here, because, you know, he has, you know, he lives here in Hernando, he has worked here in DeSoto County, you know, out of the courthouse, out of Horn Lake, you know, for many years, you know, so he has a basic familiarity, you know, that somebody coming from the outside, you know, doesn't have. I don't think we're gonna have quite the, you know, learning curve, you know, with Austin that we would have had with someone else. And so I'm hopeful that that will allow us to get more into it. Because to tell you the truth, you know, since I only work 4 hours a day, you know, it's good that we have somebody here that works full-time now.
I just think it would prevent a lot of these rezoning requests if we had that.
Well, I'll tell you something, Mr. Thorne, you know, even if we had a totally nailed-down comprehensive plan, you know, it's never gonna stop the requests. It just means we'll turn down more of them, and we'll have a better basis for turning them down.
Well, you've got a full vision of what you're expecting and
Right.
looking for.
Cohesive.
Yeah, it's a
But there will
cohesive
always
plan.
be people that wanna do something different.
Piecemealing the zoning is, spot zoning.
Yeah. When I worked up in Germantown years ago, you know, they had this 200-acre commercial core. Well, there were always people wanting to buy residential property just across the street from the commercial core because it was cheaper than buying property in the commercial core, okay? And, you know, the city just sat there and, you know, every time somebody did that and requested rezoning, they just kept saying no, 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 but there was always somebody wanting to try. You know, so, you know, all we can do is get ourselves in a better position, you know, but there will always be requests. Anyway, I'll stop philosophizing.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Steve's about to run.